Sharon, now let's see if your internet connection can hold up for this. To go on to the final thing we're going to talk about this week, which, as you said, is Reacher on Amazon Prime, something that we have both seen, but you've heard way too much of me talking. So, Sharon, take it away. What is this Reacher thing all about?
Yeah, Reacher is the the serialization of the first of the Jack Reacher novels written by Lee Child. They were controversially made into two films with Tom Cruise playing Reacher, and it was controversial because physically he doesn't look anything like the Reacher who's described in the books. So for many fans of the book, Jack Reacher is 6'5". He's built. He was a former military policeman. He has skills to use someone else's particular skills.
He has this particular set of skills.
And he doesn't. He basically is not Tom Cruise. And so, so this is now taking it back to the source and saying, okay, we're going to take it back to the source. We're going to look at the novel again, and we are going to forget the films, and then we are going to start from the beginning. We're going to go back to the source, and the source of these novels. So this is based on the first book called The Killing Floor.
Yep.
And when we come to the point where Jack Reacher is he's left the army, where he had a successful career as a military policeman. He is trained in special forces. He's served his country overseas. He's had medals. He's been honoured. And he's got his pension. So he's a man of independent means. But he has been grown up as an army brat. So he has always lived around the world. He's always been footloose. And so we meet him where he's basically decided that he doesn't want to have one base. He just wants to go where the fancy takes him.
Yeah.
And he's a fan of the blues music, so he's gone to a place where one of his favourite blues singers reportedly died. So he just goes off on this like mini South pilgrimage. And as he gets there, it coincides with a ghastly murder. And I know we hate it when that happens, but it happened. So he has then, because he's a stranger in town and there's this sort of ghastly murder happened, he is naturally a suspect. And the local pig ignorant police, as they often are in these small towns, they pick him up and throw him into jail. And then the story progresses from there as he feels he has a vested interest to find out what's going on. And then as the story progresses, you find out he's actually got much more of a vested interest than he first thought, and then we as the viewer first thought.
Yeah.
And so then it explores all those aspects, tying into his past, his previous relationships and his previous experiences, and how it lends himself to wanting to investigate because of his experience as a military policeman. Now, when we think of MPs in the British Army, they basically are picking up drunk squaddies and sort of wresting them out of pubs and into like the lockups. But apparently in the American system, and the military policeman does investigate crime. He does have that investigative skill set. So he is using that skill set to see if he can uncover what's going on about this small town. And there's lots that go on in this small town that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That this small place with seemingly has its sort of this great source of wealth, and it's all put down to the philanthropy of the local landowner. But then he's thinking, this doesn't ring true. So that has piqued his curiosity. So he then goes on to investigate.
Right. So, Sharon, could I ask, have you read any of the Jack Reacher novels?
I haven't, no. I have actually bought the first one because I had a birthday recently, and if anyone knows me knows that it's not a birthday or Christmas unless you have a book token. And I ended up with something like £60 worth of book tokens. So I have bought the first two Jack Reacher novels just so I can find out what it's all about.
What, did you buy them before watching the series or after the series?
Midway through, I thought,
All right.
my friend is a huge fan. She's read every single one of them, and she's always been going on about me saying, you really need to read them. And I've always put it off. And then I started watching it. I thought, actually, because I'd seen the Tom Cruise films, I had no interest in reading them.
Yeah.
And then I saw this and I thought, actually, there's a bit more to this than just what I thought initially. So yes, I'm more intrigued. So I've bought the first two.
All right, cool.
Can I just ask, so is it taking place close to a military base, or is it just a town and there's no military involvement at all?
No military involvement at all. So when they see this guy They describe him as a vagrant. He says, no, I'm not a vagrant, I'm a hobo. And in that sort of going back to the days in the sort of 20s and 30s where like sort of Woody Guthrie and all that, people there, they just took to the streets, they just took to the highways and byways. And because he's got this independent income, as in his army pension, he can afford to just drift with basically just the clothes on his back. He doesn't take anything with him but the clothes on his back. But yeah, it isn't connected to his army career at all. He has left that behind.
Okay, so before we get to star ratings, or before I say what I think about this, the thing about because to be honest with you, the popularity of Jack Reacher I find a little bit baffling. I find it a little bit baffling because he is written. It's essentially supposed to be like the mind of Sherlock Holmes in the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger from Commando. The movie Commando in the middle of the 80s. That's pretty much Jack Reacher. Sherlock Holmes' mind in that body. And when you hear about the different things that are written about Jack Reacher in the novels, you go, how is this popular? Like, it sounds ridiculous. Like, there's in one of the books where his peck is so hard it stops a bullet. And apparently, but I think that was Lee Child put that in probably in the 16th book or something. By that time, you were either with him or you weren't. And
yeah, if you'd made it that far, he could walk on water.
If you made it that far, it's like, yeah, you can do whatever he wants. Jack Reacher cures cancer with one look. Jack Reacher punches cancer in the face. But I have a friend, Simon Edward Spartan, who's written into stuff about the show, and he sent me a message. Every now and then he watches something, he just sends me a message going, oh, what about this? Oh, did you see this or anything? And he says Reacher was pleasantly good. It felt like an updated 80s TV show. And that is the thing that I would say. I think more than that, I would say probably an updated 80s movie, an 80s cop movie, because it has a lot of the tropes that you would have in 80s police detective things. I mean, it even down to the fact that it has it has the inscrutable male lead who doesn't speak much, but for some reason everybody kind of the women can't stop themselves from being attracted to him.
Irresistible.
Yeah, is irresistible. It has a telegraphed scene in a shower. You know this thing is coming from a mile off. And it's so 80s movie. The way that it is so 80s movie is it has the obligatory scene in a strip club. Even though it tries to do something a little bit more female empowering with it, it's kind of like straight out of an 80s. And I would agree with that. Like, it feels like an updated 80s film. So that's why I wanted to know whether you'd read the books, because this is a character, and it seems like Lee Child has essentially just taken this archetype because the first book was released in 1994, so not that far from the 80s. Yeah, and he's taken it, and he's done something with it that has somehow become really, really popular. And I'm kind of shocked as to why this thing is so popular and has such a rabid following by people from all manners of work. But I mean, it shows that he's written something good. So, but with that said, I think I agree with a lot of what you said. I thought that it was actually really well done. There's 8 episodes. I think it goes quite well. There's some good characterization. I really, really liked some of the characters. Like, I think Roscoe I really liked.
Police officer,
yeah, I like police. The police chief. I can't remember the name of the name of the character. Okay, I can't remember the name of the character, but he's the police chief. He's a black police chief in a white town. And there's something about him, Taiwo, that I have to be honest, reminds me of you. There's something about the shape of his head and the way he carries himself. It's like you with glasses. But yeah. So
I'll have to go and see this now, won't I?
Yeah,
to see if I can be offended or happy about
Oscar
that.
Finley, because I've got my little
Finley.
note here.
Yeah,
Oscar
Finley. Yeah, Oscar Finley. And
Played by Malcolm Goodwin.
Yeah, by Malcolm Goodwin. There's an actor called Malcolm Goodwin. Look him up. And I think I quite like the characterizations, and I like the way they put it together. But even like the bad guys and the plot, and it's straight up an 80s movie, but updated, and I actually quite liked it. So, Sharon, how many stars would you give it?
Yeah, I liked it too. I thought, because sometimes when it's an 8-part episode, you sort of in the middle, it sort of begins to flag a bit, and you're thinking, I'm sure we could sort of, wind this up a bit quicker. But I actually enjoyed it, so I would give it a 4.
I would agree with you. I would give it a 4. I particularly like the fact that one of the things I liked about it is that you see the detecting, if you get what I mean. because there's a lot of things that's supposed to be detective shows where there isn't much detecting that goes on. Stuff just falls in people's laps, and they're like, "Oh yeah, oh there it is, we solved the crime. Oh, he's the greatest detective ever." No, he isn't. it's like in some James Bond movies where you're like, "How did he find that out? It just fell in his lap. He punched somebody and something fell out of their pocket. He didn't do any detecting whatsoever." But in this, they make a point of you seeing how the detecting is going on and how he finds a clue. Like there's a clue that he finds in episode 1 that he just keeps thinking about and thinking, and it's not until like episode 5 that the clue pays off. And so I really like the fact that it's a detective show in that you can see the detecting that's happening, and it's not just kind of like this. Oh, it's run about time that the detectives solve the crime. Ta-da! There it is.
Yeah, I think I'd be interesting to I'd imagine they will make more series. It sort of has.
They've already ordered a second season. Essentially, they ordered a second season of Reacher after the first one had been out about 3 days, because the response to it was so positive that they went, go do another one straight away. So everybody's coming back. Well, not everybody behind the scenes is coming back, because the nature of Jack Reacher is that he is a hobo and he is a drifter. And I think they do a good enough job with this show that if you understand that aspect of Jack Reacher's character, you are sad that it's very unlikely you're going to see any of these characters apart from Reacher himself again.
Yeah, because I was wondering if it's going to be, like the crime of the week, but with the obviously, but with the scope of the books, yes, I would be interested to see if you get recurring characters. But I would say in the nature of the beast is that probably not. But it'd be interesting to see, because some of these characters are so popular that I would think, how can you not want to draw them back in? But we'll see.
I just realized what it is. That's what Reacher was reminding me of. It isn't Sherlock Holmes's mind in Arnold Schwarzenegger's body. It's Sherlock Holmes's mind in the Incredible Hulk's body from the 1970s, 80s TV show.
I was going to say, yeah, the Wanderer, just the Wanderer.
Yes, that's it. Jack Reacher is the Hulk from the 70s, 80s TV, where he goes to a different town every week. Only this one is a different town every season. But, oh my God, that's what it is. That's exactly what the show is.
I think he did remind me a little bit of, I know it's a costume thing, but it reminded me of Sharp in some ways, how with the different Sharp, but not the Sean Bean, the book Sharp, who's quite different. And physically, he's quite different. But how you get these sort of like adventures in each book, that how he has a little cast of regulars who go with him. But the way that the character was built, I thought, he was the 90s hero really. So I could see elements of him in there.